Previously, in the dungeon of the Mad Mage, the party found themselves once more facing down the living form of Hexakali within the memory fragment on floor 8 of the dungeon. But things were different this time. The Yuan-Ti forms they inhabited were no longer weakened, no longer unsure. The serpentine fetishes the party had attuned to were the missing piece of the puzzle, and now the battle could play out as it was meant to be. Now resistant to the Naga's freezing magics and regenerating what little harm was done to them, the party was able to methodically cut Hexakali down. But she was still an immortal, and the party knew not what the next step would be. But their counterparts did. As Hexakali began her death throes, the Nightmare Speaker pulled forth an urn, and the memories of its creation were revealed to the party. The black candle they had found, the altar, the urns beneath it, all of it was to create this. A soul jar, specifically designed to trap Hexakali's immortal soul. But it needed something. A spirit within to grapple, to bind the soul it devoured for all eternity. In order to create this jar, a sacrifice had been made. Hexakali howled as the jar was revealed, her scales and flesh peeled away from her bones and sucked into the jar along with her soul. All that was left was her skeleton, a pile of animate bones that writhed with malicious intent. A bone Naga had been born. The Vrail readied themselves to fight against this new threat. They were prepared. The Malison drew forth a ritual dagger designed to enchant the Bone Naga, weakening its formidable defenses and allowing for its defeat. But the party knew that this was not how things ended. And they saw the moment when the forces of the Sethian Scourges rallied against the Vrail and defeated them. Excrutha and Saraketh came to their sister's aid, too late to save her immortal soul, for the Nightmare Speaker had sent the jar containing Hexakali away, realizing that if it was acquired by the remaining two Scourges, all would have been for naught. The Vrail were butchered on that day, and the few that remained could only mount a token defense against the Scourges for a brief while longer. But Hexakali had been made mortal. The Scourges were now 2 instead of 3. As the memory faded, the party found themselves back in their bodies once more, with quite a bit of information. They returned to the temple, to the inner sanctum, and verified what they had learned. There were 3 more jars that could be prepared. But the issue was the need for sacrifice. The party as a whole was not in favor of the idea of consigning someone to this fate for all eternity, especially not their newfound allies. So they sought to figure out a way around this requirement. But first, they handled what they were sure about. The ritual for creating the enchanted dagger had been revealed to them in the memory. The dagger would be useful in defeating the Queen of Bones and the Scourges once their souls were trapped. The party had been quite close in their experimentations originally with the statue of Seth earlier on. Bones set Windspike within the jaws of the statue, placed the venom of the Vrail within the receptacles, and the statue closed its jaw. Magical pressure surged within, and Windspike was enchanted once more. But at that moment, the statue cracked, rending the skull of the serpent down the center. The party had enchanted a dagger for the purposes of fighting the Bone Nagas, but only one. Still, it was progress forward. But the soul jars were still a concern. Matashtai had an idea, though. If it just required a willing spirit, perhaps Yoastel, the Yuan-Ti ghost that had been out for vengeance against the Scourges, would help them. Matashtai and Ashes headed to find the spirit. Meanwhile, Ezrah spent time studying the altar and the inner sanctum. Matashtai and Ashes had little luck in finding Yoastel, though, let alone convincing her to help. Ashes eventually led the two men in a sort of seance, and with the help of Zalara, he was able to make brief contact with Yoastel. but the ghost was too weak to accomplish anything, and it faded away.
The ghost gave up the ghost.
The ghost gave up the ghost. In the meantime, Ezrah had invited Izu, who arrived with Risk, to discuss the ritual and potential alternatives. The Bullywug Warlock had few opinions on alternatives, though she insisted there were always different methods. But what she did have opinions on were that the Blacktongue tribe not be told about the sacrifice part, especially not Cass or Ask, who she believed would give themselves over immediately, to the detriment of the tribe. After some discussion, Risk addressed the gathered individuals and summed up where the party was at. They would investigate alternatives for the willing sacrifices for the jars within the Slither Swamp and other locations if need be. The Blacktongue tribe had survived this long. It could survive a while longer, especially now that it presented a unified front. And, once the party returned, if they could find no other way, then the Blacktongue tribe would be told, and it would be allowed to make the choice it believed best for itself. There was wisdom in Risk's words, but it was not a wisdom that Izu wanted to hear. The young warlock stormed out, and Bones and Ezrah perhaps saw Risk face heartbreak in that moment. Not long after, Matashtai and Ashes arrived with the unfortunate news that they had failed to retrieve Yoastel's aid. The party was running out of options. Hey everybody, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, consider leaving a like, commenting, or subscribing. It really helps me out. If you'd like to see me live, head over to my Twitch at twitch.tv/thedistanthorizon.